Hi everyone, it's Amanda. Today I have my May wrap-up. The first book I read in May was Predator by Terry Blackstock. This is about a woman whose sister has been killed by someone she met on a social networking online website, and she wants justice. She decides to go after this person. This was good. It was a great thriller. It's Christian fiction, but it really didn't feel that way in really any way that I can remember. It was pretty run-of-the-mill thriller. I did really enjoy it. I thought it was very interesting, and it was one of those that I just wanted to keep reading. I ended up giving this 4 stars. After that, I read Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, and this was one of my favorite books of the year so far. Such an interesting story. It's about a husband and a wife who have an abusive relationship. And originally I thought, okay, this is gonna be your typical domestic abuse relationship kind of story, but it went so much farther than that. It is very bizarre and interesting, and I just really liked it. It was hard to put down, just really interesting, and yeah, it's one that you just need to read if you like thrillers, psychological thrillers, twisted relationships, people who are very strange. It did remind me a lot of Gone Girl because one of the characters in this book is someone that I just absolutely hated, and even more than the characters in Gone Girl, I hated this person for what they were doing, and just despicable, but it was great. So I gave this 5 stars. I highly recommend it. I got this from abebooks.com. I'm not sure if it's out yet in the US, but it's out in the UK. It's a UK edition, but I'm so glad I read it. Loved it. After that, I read Conviction, The Untold Story of Putting Jodi Arias Behind Bars by Juan Martinez. He is the prosecuting attorney in Arizona who prosecuted Jodi Arias. She was convicted of killing her ex-boyfriend horribly. It was just fascinating. I watched the case from the beginning to the end, and it was a very long, drawn-out case. It actually had 2 penalty phases, and it was just crazy, but very interesting. And this man who wrote this book is amazing as a lawyer. I've never seen anything like it. The way he worked and what he did, it was just unbelievable. He's very smart and just wouldn't let her get away with anything because she is a very manipulative person. So I really enjoyed this. I didn't learn a lot of new stuff, but it was interesting to read from his perspective. I gave this 5 stars as well. Then I read The Girl Who Couldn't Read by John Harding. This is a book that takes place in a psychiatric facility in the 1800s, and it's about a man who comes to work there, and there's a lot of mystery going on, and there's this mysterious girl. I thought this was good, but it was not as great as I expected. I was looking for something much better. Something about it, it was just kind of boring, not really as great as I expected. It is very historical. It's pretty atmospheric, so I did like that, but the story really didn't interest me that much, and I gave it 3 stars, so it was okay. I have been going back to reading some of my old books, trying to revisit them. I found some podcasts where they talk about these books, and it's so much fun to read the story and then listen to the podcast and just kind of laugh along with these other people who are kind of laughing at some of the stuff we read back in the day. So I read Secrets by Francine Pascal, Sweet Valley High, number 2. And this was just campy, crazy fun. The characters are just crazy, and it's just a lot of fun to read, and definitely just a fluffy pleasure kind of read. I gave this 3 stars. It was decent for what it was. I rate these on a bit of a higher scale because they are Sweet Valley High, but I thought it was decent. And I read The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot, and this I received from Blogging for Books in exchange for an honest review. This is a nonfiction, and I believe it's getting made into a movie, and I think Oprah is starring in it. I could be completely wrong, but I think so. This is about this woman, Henrietta Lacks. She provided the Gila cells. They're called HeLa cells, and they use HeLa cells in research all over the world. Her cells are everywhere, basically. And they were taken from her without her knowledge, without her permission, when she was in 1951, when she was in the hospital. And a lot of money has been made off of these cells, and none of it has gone to her family. And it's a very fascinating story. It's a very interesting story. It makes you question ethics and a lot of things that you might have never thought about. I thought it was interesting, but I did find it kind of long, and it wasn't as great, again, as I expected it to be. I have been reading more nonfiction. There were times when I just was kind of, felt like it was dragging a bit or going into too many things that I didn't feel like were as relevant, maybe. So I gave this 3 stars. I did think it was worth reading, especially if you're in the medical field. I think it's really interesting to kind of look at it from that perspective, but it wasn't my favorite. Then I read Centralia by Mike Deloso. I have a lot of his books and hadn't read any yet, so I picked this up, and I really like his writing style. This is a thriller. From start to finish, you're on a journey with this main character. He wakes up one day and his wife and his daughter are missing, and his neighbor says, you know, they died a couple years ago, or a couple months ago. It was a while ago, and he doesn't remember, and it's a lot about there's someone out to get him, and there's some mind control going on, and you don't know which is right, which is wrong, lots of stuff like that. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's not really my personal favorite kind of story. A lot of stuff about military and government and things like that that I'm just not as interested in. But for what it was, I thought it was pretty good. Like I said, I did really like his writing style. I gave it 4 stars, and I will read more of his books. This is Christian fiction, but and it does mention God and faith and prayer, so I didn't mind that. Some people might. I thought it was really good. I read Under the Harrow by Flynn Barry. Someone from Penguin Publishing contacted me and asked if I would like to review this, and of course I would, because it is a thriller. And I think this just came out June 14th. It just came out. It is about a woman who goes to visit her sister and finds her sister murdered and is not sure what's going on. She's trying to figure it out, and she also is kind of a suspect. And again, you don't know what's going on. You don't really know if what you're hearing is true or not. It was really interesting. It's a short book, which I really liked. It's 219 pages. The author really packs a lot in it. It's very dense, and I love that. I wish more authors would do this. Make a shorter book that's full of good story than make a longer book that has a lot of fluff and things you don't need to read. Everything in this book was worth reading, so I like that a lot. It did take me a little bit to get into it at first. The writing style was a little tricky for me at first, but after about 20 pages, I really got into it, and I thought it was really good. It also has a lot of twists and turns, so if you like that, I think you'd like this book. I gave it 5 stars. And lastly, in May, I read The Alliance by Jolena Petersheim, and I received this from Tyndale Publishing in exchange for an honest review. This was interesting. It's about an old order Mennonite community that is rocked by the effects of an EMP on the English world. So EMP is when the whole electric grid is snuffed out in some way, and we're back to like a third world country because there's no electricity, there's no phones, your car doesn't run, nothing electric works. So these people in this Mennonite community have to deal with this, and they form an alliance with some Englishers to work together and stay safe. And I thought this story was really interesting, but I did have some anxiety during reading this. My husband has talked about this several times. He loves watching the news. He loves watching, you know, ancient aliens, all these crazy things. I try to stay away from all of those things because I do get anxiety about things, and my mind starts to fester on things and build things up into big conclusions that will never happen. So I don't watch the news. I don't do any of that. So this did cause me some anxiety because that is a scary thought that that could happen. It is a possibility and it would really change everybody's life. So that being said, I had to put this story in a box and make it a fictional story. I couldn't think of it on the lines of this is what could happen. So it was a little hard for me in that way. It was a challenge. It wasn't anything against the author. It was just my own personal craziness. But I did really like this story. This author is very talented in her writing. She's very good at describing things. I thought it was an interesting premise. I've read a lot of Amish love stories and I liked that this was something completely different, a new twist. And I gave this 4 stars. This is Christian fiction. Again, I don't think you would not enjoy it if you weren't Christian. I think you'd still like it because it is an interesting, like almost like a apocalyptic kind of story. That's it. Those are the books I read in May. I'll be back soon with a few more videos. I have quite a few books that I bought recently that I'm going to haul and maybe some more stuff, who knows. But have a great night and I'll see you next time. Bye.